Hey, Daryl here, and this is my daily devotional. God is always at work, behind the scenes, making arrangements with the details. That's our God. Now, sometimes it seems like God's far away, but for those who love the Lord, God has promised to never leave or forsake us. He's always there, dealing in our situations. Michael W. Smith has recorded a song recently. It can be heard on the radio. And some of the lyrics go like this. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. And he goes on and says, Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Yes, he is the waymaker. He makes a way for us when we see there is no way. Well, in the book of Esther, as we are studying through, there seemed to be no way out for the Jewish folks who were decreed to die by Haman because he was furious at Mordecai for not taking a knee in his presence. Now, earlier, there were two fellas who were conspiring against King Xerxes, going to assassinate him. But Mordecai learned of this. He said to Queen Esther, his cousin, warn the king. And the king was warned. He was saved from the assassins, and now those assassins had been hung. Well, Mordecai says to his cousin, Queen Esther, you have been placed in this honor as queen for such a time as this. Go to the king and ask that the Jews not be killed as Haman has instructed. Well, she says, I can't do that. We don't do that. But they fasted for 3 days and 3 nights. And she got up the spiritual courage to approach the king. The king said, you can have anything you want. Up to half the kingdom. You can have it. And she said, well, let's have a banquet. Invite Haman. And so they had a banquet. Haman came. They were drinking wine. They were getting all happy. And the king said, well, what do you want, queen? And she said, well, let's have a banquet again tomorrow, and then I promise to tell you. And so Haman went home. He's all braggadocious about being with the king and the queen, about the money he has, and that the only problem he had in his life was that Mordecai, who wouldn't take a knee in his presence. And so his wife and his friends, they say, build a 75-foot gallows tonight. And tomorrow ask the king that he may be hung there. And so they did. They built this 75-foot tall gallows for Mordecai to be hung. Well, that same night, the king, King Xerxes, couldn't sleep. And so he asked that the chronicles be read to him. That would be like the diary of his reign, the events that have occurred. And it says to us in Esther chapter 6 that Verse 1, that night the king could not sleep, so he ordered the book of the Chronicles, the record of his reign, to be brought and read to him. It was found recorded there that Mordecai had exposed Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who had guarded the doorway, who had conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. What honor and recognition has Mordecai received for this? The king asked. Nothing has been done for him, his attendants answered. The king said, who is in the court? Now Haman had just entered the court and the palace to speak to the king about hanging Mordecai on the gallows he had erected. So as he's coming in, he hears the king talking about honoring someone. Well, pious, selfish Haman thought it was him that was to be honored. And so the king said, what would you do? How would you honor such a person? Now, Haman thought he was talking about himself, but the king was talking about Mordecai being honored. So Haman thought to himself, who is there that the king would rather honor than me? So he answered the king, for the man the king delights to honor, have them bring a royal robe the king has worn, and a horse the king has ridden, one with royal crest placed on his head. Then let the robe and the horse be entrusted to one of the king's most noble princes. And then he finds out, it's not me. It's Mordecai that's going to be honored. So how shameful it was that all of this that Haman had said to honor himself, he thought, he was saying to honor his enemy Mordecai. Verse 10, go at once, the king commanded Haman, get the robe and the horse. Do just as you suggested for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything you've recommended. So Haman did this, and then in shame, he went home in grief. And then his wife and his friends all say, well, that fella Mordecai is a Jew. You're not going to be able to hurt him. Listen, folks, God is always at work. And as you read the book of Esther, you can see the details that happen behind the scenes where God is working all this out for those who love him. God bless you.